wow, it is impressive. When it's done wrong, the parents think, what are those kids stumbling around out there doing? There's 3 zones in this one. So there's a distance between, what we have on the screen here is the TNT layout for this game. For Trek Journey, that front line and the back line is much greater, okay? So right now I'm going to talk about the TNT running of the game. You've got a zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. Zone 1 is where the first player stands with the balloon. All the players are facing towards the center of the circle. You've got 5 players. One of them is in zone 1, one of them is in zone 3. At the start of the game, everyone is straddling that red team line, okay? The balloon starts with behind the head of the first player, and both hands must be touching the balloon. Now, what does both hands mean? Does that mean they need to put a death grip on it with both hands? No. They can just have it a finger touching it. It's fine. So player number 1 puts the balloon between their legs at the start and hands it to somebody else that's behind them, and the balloon goes between all the players' legs. So it gets to the number 5 person who receives the balloon. While they're straddling that red line and outside the circle, they then run up to the front, go into zone 1, straddling the line, and putting the balloon between their legs. And you repeat that continuously to the first player that started is now in zone 3. They're the number 5 position. They receive the balloon, they run in for their touch pit. If the balloon breaks at any time, you're disqualified. It's not like Sparky Balloon Pop where the judges have another balloon that they jam in there. Nope, you break the balloon, you're done. And the balloons are not filled up very full. They're actually nice and soft. They're only about 6-7 inches in diameter. Dave, you're gonna say something?
We also try to use the same color balloons to make it more fair, because you may have the yellow that day was thinner than the blue that day.
We ran into that one year where it seems like one color balloon was a bad batch, even though they were all in the bag together and they were breaking easier. So we try to use the same color balloon if we can. Trek Journey, your players have to be evenly spaced. And I'm trying to remember, and I'm drawing a blank, everybody's supposed to touch the balloon in Trek Journey, or no?
Yeah.
Depends who wrote the rules. At Summit, everybody has to touch the balloon.
Okay,
So
well, we'll have to look at our rule book.
First of all, repeat, because this is a question coming online.
Okay,
So repeat what Tom said, please.
so
At Summit.
at Summit, everybody has to touch the balloon. At ours, I would say you gotta look in the rule book. I can't remember what was written there. I don't have it
Can we
completely.
look that up, because Askuna is asking that again.
Okay, while we're looking on that,
And so,
I'll keep-
question from online,
Okay.
for Trek Journey, they've been told not to stack, but to evenly place, but then every year, there's a team that stacks, and then they evenly place. So could you
So
please
there's, all
clarify?
right, so
space?
for spacing, the distance between that marker there in the front for zone 1 and the marker for zone 3 is much greater for Trek Journey. The players have to be evenly spaced out in there. They can't all be bunched up at the very front of zone 2. And then the first player takes the balloon and just flings it to the back line, or somebody grabs it. They have to be evenly spaced.
One hand's length, what's the spacing we're asking?
Evenly spaced. I will say that now, because people's arms are different lengths in here.
Right, the
So
students'
they are evenly
length,
spaced.
yeah.
So it's, if the distance is 15 feet between there, and I can't remember off the top of my head, the spacing is, everybody's 3 feet apart. Does that make sense?
Right, so
You're
the
evenly
student
spaced.
arm length is the best we can do, right? Because you're
Student
asking-
arm length is fantastic, but if the line judge notices that everybody is still, when their arm length apart, bunched towards the front, he's going to say you're not evenly spaced. You got it, Tom? What do we got, bud?
It is not necessary for.
It is not necessary in our event for everyone to touch the balloon. At Summit, it is. So our rule book is a little bit different. All
Okay, so
right?
just for clarification, what's Summit? Summit
Summit
our regional
is the
student- national.
national competition for Journey, okay?
Right.
So they have a games competition where kids come from all over the country and play. So our rule there is a little different. We're not requiring that every player touch it. But
So for Summit, everybody's required to touch?
everybody is required at Summit. At ours, they are
regionals.
not.
Not everyone is required to touch?
Not everyone's required.
So that begs the question, though, that if you're stacking, If you're not, if you're evenly spaced, everyone must touch, but
If you're evenly
stacked,
spaced, we are not requiring you.
Yeah, difficult
it'll
not
be
to.
good, difficult not to.
Yeah, it'll be difficult not to. I mean, you would really have to throw that balloon to get it. But
that's
we're
not-
kind of crazy about the evenly spaced here for Trek Journey, okay? That's what the rule says. We want you evenly spaced. I had some people get very upset with me one year because I required them to be evenly spaced, and they said, well, it's not the way we played the game in practice.
Now,
Well, the
my
rule book says evenly spaced, so that's what we're gonna go by, so.
So
It
let's-
says it must be evenly spaced at the beginning. If during the event it switches around with that, we have never.
If during the event, they're sliding around, but I think that we're gonna say, correct me if I'm wrong, Warren, if they suddenly decide to bunch after the game starts,
You're not gonna be able to stop that.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to, as circle directors, line judges, we'll discuss it more, and we will send out a clarification email, whether or not we would disqualify you after the start of the game if your team suddenly bunched. How's that? Is that good enough? We'll send out an email to everyone?
I think we're okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions on balloon relay?
I have one.
Okay, go for it.
For TNT, obviously the first and the fifth players have to be in zone 1 and zone 3. What about the middle three? If my second player is standing on the line and their toe is in zone 1?
So, the only players that have to be in certain positions.
Repeat the question.
Okay,
for me.
so the question was, where are the players supposed to be? Can they actually go, I believe you're saying, into a different zone?
Yeah, so player 3 through 4, or 2
Okay.
through 4.
So
Yeah.
players 2 through 4, are they required to be in zone 2? No, okay? We actually teach our kids in this game, the second player, all right, they're actually standing on that line. That stops the first player from, doesn't always stop, but it stops that player from going into zone 2. Now, when is a player going to be disqualified? They run up to be in zone 1, to the number 1 position. They place their feet behind the line, okay? Are they disqualified at that instant? Well, the instant they start to pass it and put the balloon between their legs, we're gonna disqualify. That make sense? You can jump in, Warren, or no?
We're okay.
Okay, so, so once they start to pass that balloon between your legs, that's it, okay, we'll disqualify. Number 5, they have to be behind that line and straddling it. Only when they receive the balloon, when they first touch the balloon. Warren, you gonna jump in?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, the two biggest places where people get disqualified in this is when player number 1 is behind that front line. That's the one thing that I specifically watch for. And then, of course, in zone 3, if you're not the last person, if that last person is up front of the line, when they receive the balloon, then they're
Or
disqualified.
not straddling when they receive the balloon.
Or not straddling. Both those have to be straddling and then, in front of or behind that
Now, is that
particular line.
inside square important? Does player 1 have to be outside that inside square and in front of that line, or does that inside square not matter really?
No.
What happens if that player 1 is too close to the center of the circle? Remember, their
The
touch
pin,
pin is
yes.
5 feet from there.
Yeah.
If they knock over the touch pin,
Before
they
end
have
the
signaled that they have completed the game.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's no,
this diagram is like for a 3-foot, it's actually closer to here.
Okay.
By the time you come into there, it's, as a good practice, you don't want to
Be too far up.
be too far up.
If you have a tall person in a number 1 position, which you frequently do, if they bring that balloon forward as they're
Yeah, they have
passing
it.
through, they've knocked down they knock down their touch pin. It's happened.
with long hair.
That happened, and the ponytail did take one out once, that was.
So I'm not saying use short feet, but just whoever's in that front position has to be careful not to knock down that pin. And really, anybody coming forward has to be careful with it.
okay, so are there any other questions on balloon relay? Got anything online, Pauline, for that one?
Do players in zone 2 have to be straddling the line?
No. The only
No.
time players need to be straddling the line is in the zone 1 and zone 3 when they are in zone 3 receiving the balloon, in zone 1 when they are putting the balloon between their legs. and they're passing off that balloon. Does that make sense? Good on that? All right, like I said, practice this game. It is a thing of beauty when your kids do it right, and it is laughable when they do it wrong. And the parents will look from the crowd when the kids are doing it right, and they'll go, that was my son or daughter? Holy cats, I don't understand that game, but that was impressive. This is a big teamwork game, and it really shows when they're working as a team. All right?
And when you see the kid walking home because they messed it up, you understand why.
When I was in club, we would try and get this game down to about 8 seconds. And you look at it initially, you'll time it, it'll be 12, 13. It was like, no way, but you can. But it has to be just very smooth, fluent to make that happen. The other thing is a good reason to have this game really well done and really, this is, if you're close, this is where you're going to win or lose the whole day. So this one, the first event, you win that, it gets you on a good track. This one, if you're close, it's going to pull you out of the hat.
So, Christy, you have a question?
Can the kids have water on the floor?
Can you repeat that, please?
Is water allowed to be on the game floor?
Thank you.
No, we typically have not allowed
So
it.
they're gonna enforce it?
There are teams that have gotten by and we haven't noticed it till halfway through. We're at a new venue this year, and the last thing we want to do is be poor stewards of the venue. So we're going to say no water bottles allowed on the floor.
Okay.
Also, your players, and we didn't say this, they can't leave the floor. I mean, the event isn't 4 hours long. It takes, including the speaker, 90 minutes to run the event. Have them go to the bathroom beforehand. None of the games are so long that your kids should be dying of thirst that they got to keep grabbing a water bottle. Does that make sense?
And in the past, we've had water bottles kicked and broken on the floor, and
Yes.
there's been water, and that adds to not being safe.
It's a safety
running.
issue.
So it is a safety issue,
So-
but if there's a health issue, then, perhaps on the very perimeter.
Yeah.
but-
And if one of the kids gets sick and they're gonna have diarrhea or throw up, by all means, get off the floor. We're not gonna keep anybody up there. I don't wanna see that. So, anything else from the questions from here? Anything else online? Questions?
I think we're good.
Oh, again, we appreciate you coming out today, and I know Jay mentioned it, that if there's an issue, a contested call, something, come to us with a smile on your face. The last thing we want to do is ruin our testimony because someone's jumping up and down, they're angry and red-faced, and really a little bit of kindness goes a long way. So the best way to win your argument is if you're kind about how you present it. So.
Also, the J is in that picture.
He looks pretty good there. What's that say?
Jay is right there. Either from our own games. So anyway, this is our first go around with doing the Zoom call. So actually we did the Sparks earlier, but this is our first whole day where we're doing the Zoom call. We hope to help out with those online, not having to come out on these days. And we're going to continue to do this and improve it. So if you have suggestions about, one of the things we're thinking about doing is getting video clips of each game so we can play that and show where people have to stand, how it works. For teams that have never seen the game, this will give them a good clue about how a good operation it would be. So anyway, again, thanks for coming out today.
We're going to take a quick break.
Yes, we're going to take a quick break. We have to render this current video to get ready for the next one, so it's not one big long string. And these videos will be available on GreatLakesMinistries.com.
Org.
GreatLakesMinistry.org. Just seeing if you're paying attention. And you know so thank you very much. We're going to close this and get ready for our next session at
At 10:45, log back in at 10:43.
10:45. Yeah, log back in about